You might be wondering where I am. You're not? Well, okay, now I bet you're guessing, why are you? Well, I'm in a tree today to talk to you about trees. Not just trees in Australia, but trees everywhere. And today, trees in the United States. The United States, which contains nearly 10% of the world's forests, plays a critical role in reducing the buildup of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. These forests remove around 12% of the nation's greenhouse gases each year and store them long term. Less than a year ago, The Conversation published an article describing how President Biden's executive orders, aimed at conserving at least 30% of US lands and waters, were the first steps in addressing what it called a profound climate crisis. The article stated, "The sooner logging of these forests ceases, the more climate protection they can provide." We as young Aussies grew up facing record-breaking floods, fires, and droughts. We know what's at stake in this climate crisis. Now, recent executive orders from President Trump have shifted the US's focus toward reviving domestic industry, at the expense of environmental protections. These orders bypass laws that safeguard old-growth forests and double down on logging, potentially doubling the amount of timber harvested from these vital ecosystems. Combined with the dismantling of US climate policy, these actions will have severe consequences, not just for the US, but for the planet. We're not just observers to these problems. We are the generation that will live through the consequences. These decisions also threaten to annihilate endangered species by undermining key protections in the National Environmental Policy Act and the Endangered Species Act. The executive order, titled Immediate Expansion of American Timber Production, will significantly increase pollution of air and water, especially given that logging already contributes more pollution than all of the nation's coal-fired power plants combined. The timber industry's focus on old-growth trees, due to their superior timber quality, destroys primary carbon sinks and increases wildfire risk, contradicting the very goals the executive order claims to support. This executive order promises to increase jobs and income for the US, and yes, it will do this. But what use is a paycheck in a world that's on fire? This following quote comes from NAI, but I think that it provides some insight onto this situation. Every ton of CO2 released in the US fuels the bushfires that tear through our towns, bleaches the Great Barrier Reef, and drives up the cost of living right here in Australia. Currently, the US is home to over 1,300 endangered species, many of which depend on forest ecosystems to survive. Existing laws protect these habitats, but Trump's recent orders attempt to override them for the sake of timber production. Old-growth trees, some thousands of years old, support a complex web of life, including epiphytic plants that live in their canopies, and animals that rely on the unique ecosystems these forests provide. We as Australians know that bushland isn't just a collection of trees. They're homes, ecosystems, even spiritual places for many First Nations communities. That's true here, and it's true in the US. These forests not only store carbon, but also generate fertile topsoil, something that young or replanted forests struggle to do. The environmental consequences don't stop there. Logging equipment directly pollutes the air and water. In mountainous regions, removing old-growth trees weakens the soil, increasing the risk of landslides and erosion, both of which threaten aquatic ecosystems downstream. Contrary to claims that logging prevents wildfires, removing the largest, most fire-resistant trees, these are the timber industry's preferred targets, actually increases wildfire vulnerability. With nearly 10% of the world's forests, the US is a vital carbon sink, absorbing 600 million tons of CO2 annually. When trees are cut down, their stored carbon is released back into the atmosphere. And the younger trees, planted to replace them cannot match the older trees' carbon sequestering power, as the amount of CO2 absorbed increases near exponentially with age. The result is a net increase in atmospheric carbon and a further destabilization of our climate. We might not be able to vote in American elections, but we can vote with our choices. We can stand up for forests here and overseas by speaking out, showing up, and holding our leaders accountable. Even though the US is on the other side of the world, their decisions shape our future. Every tree they log, every law they weaken, adds to the global climate crisis that we, as young Australians, will inherit. Trump's complete disregard for the climate and America's old-growth forests is a troubling sign. His executive orders will destroy habitats, pollute our air and water, and remove crucial carbon sinks, impacting people around the world, even here in Australia. The US is now the only country on the planet not actively trying to reduce its carbon footprint, and seeing them backpedal on climate action only increases the global burden that climate change is creating. But we are not powerless. We are a generation of young people who led climate strikes and stood up when our leaders would not through these grim times. All that's left for us to do is care and act.
And she fears if she cries that first tear, the tears will not stop.